Do Supernova impress you the most out of those 4?
Yeah, they have a win.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be the secret. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to tonight's episode of The Salt Mine. We are on Season 4, Episode 2. 2 weeks into the NACL. We skipped NACL week number 1, but that's good. That means we have every team with some games under their belt to talk about. I'm Gordo. I'm joined by Quax on the show tonight, and we have special guest, the Bully owner, and do you call yourself CEO, Bully, of Blue Otter?
No,
No,
that's just for losers.
just owner.
It's not a CEO until it becomes a profitable organization, in my opinion.
All right, fair enough.
But bully stonks are always going up, right?
Yeah, I don't want to be the CEO and then be like, oh yeah, we must kick him out. We need to demote somebody else, bring someone else as CEO. Nah. This is a losing organization. No one should be or losing money organization.
Okay, there
no
you go.
Put to that.
Good adjustment. Good adjustment.
I was about to say losing organization. Where's the optimism?
No,
here?
we're only winning.
You're an undefeated organization through week number 2 of the NACL, so got to be pretty happy about that one. Undefeated in series, defeated in games, I suppose, but
it's okay.
It's all right. Yeah,
series is all that matters.
Surely. So, really happy to have you on, Bully. Want to open things up, like chatting about Blue Otter a little bit, especially in light of what's been we'll call it a trimester. It's been a massive trimester for you guys over on Blue Otter. From the outside looking in, it kind of feels like you guys have made a series of and I suppose just you specifically. I don't know how many folks you had with you at the start, but you've just made a series of great decisions that have paid off perhaps even a little bit more than one could have expected. You guys acquired the Aporia roster for OQ number 2 in spring after not having participated in OQ1. Ended up making the promo tournament, ended up making promotion NACL, and immediately after that, the value of NACL spots appears to have gone up a little bit with some of the announcements for the Americas merger. Is that kind of how you see it as well, as just kind of everything coming up heads, or does it feel different from the inside?
I mean, yeah, when we first acquired the Aporia roster, first we wanted to participate in OQ1, but our roster kind of boomed before, so we decided not to participate. The Aporia roster, one of the managers contacted me right after they got eliminated. So they're slated for 8th, and they were looking for a new org, and I said I was interested. And while we were in the talks, they told me, it's like, wait a minute, we might have to play again. And I was like, what? And that's when the Morningstar White situation happened, where they got disqualified at Blue Otter, or Aporia was allowed to continue during OQ1, and they eventually won. So no, I didn't expect to acquire a team that won OQ1. I expected to get an 8th place team, but I did like the roster, and I thought there was good possibility that they could win OQ2 and get a promotion spot. But it ended up playing that we didn't do too hot in OQ2. Sure, we got 4th, but it didn't matter. We still got the promotion slot and still won. Well, got 2nd.
Big ups for sure. So I guess we can open up, because I had a couple questions for you regarding kind of the meteoric rise the squad had, obviously from Aporia to Blue Otter to getting promoted. I wanted to kind of ask a question about right after you guys got promoted, because obviously that's when a lot of the teams that get promoted will usually swap their roster in some way. So what was kind of the mindset after immediately getting promoted? Was there oh, we really want to keep this person, or was there what do we want to work on for NACL? What were the questions and sort of the things that you guys wanted to build on and work on after you guys had initially gotten promoted going into the NACL?
So there's actually a rule in NACL where you need to keep 4 players.
I see.
Unless they go to a different NACL team.
Including your subs.
Out of 7. Yeah. Including your sub. Unless they go to another NACL team, which is why CCG. They lost Yukino and Bradley, so that
And
counts
Instinct.
against that. Yeah, so they basically could have had a whole new roster, besides like one player. For us, I don't think we were even looking to replace anyone. If they wanted to play, we'd let them play. They earned the promotion slot, so why not just let them try their luck out and see if they could show that they deserve to be here. And if we get relegated, so be it. But unfortunately, Lawrence couldn't. He was going to be out of the country. Lynx did not have the time commitment to participate, so which is why we just stuck with Samican Music and Rovex and brought on Quacker and Levitate.
Good
Nice,
stuff.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
curious what else you could share about like that off-season process, because it feels like
Oh, it's
especially
complete
compared.
bullshit.
Well, great. Let's get into that, because it feels like you guys had the best go of it out of the 3 new teams to the NACL this split. You had your roster announcement up super early. It seems like you got things
Mhm.
locked down. You actually fielded the roster you announced. That wasn't the case for a couple of different NACL teams this split.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you guys make it happen?
I mean, we already had 3 out of 5 committed, but I I have a big problem. Like for example, in OQs, I disliked it when we locked in players late and we only had like a week to practice. It felt
Mhm.
really bad. So locking players early to try to get that practice routine started early and try to build that synergy, especially with 2 new players, is very important to us, and it definitely worked out well so far. We worked through a lot of issues that we had in the beginning of our like scrim sessions and are trying to get into mid-season form early to try to catch some of these teams off guard. But we were able to find Quacker. Quacker was on wild card, and he built. He was definitely a piece that resembled Lawrence. Something that could relate to almost his play style, and put him in place of Lawrence, so we didn't have to kind of redesign how the team plays. And then we brought on Levitate. Levitate has had an unfortunate go before, in this,
Mhm.
I guess, NACL environment, especially playing on like TA and stuff. But he's definitely stepped into his role. He's trying to learn as quickly as possible, especially because we have 2 rookies. They're all eager to play as well, and trying to get better. And it definitely shows. They're definitely excited to play in this NACL and not just trying to money grab, which a lot of these players do tend to do. And I understand that, but sometimes they lose ambition to actually grow as a player.
Yeah. I actually was really interested. I think the big surprise for the offseason for me, at least regarding your guys' roster changes, your 2 roster changes, I should say, was definitely Levitate. Because I feel like Levitate is one of the players that has really flown under the radar. Like you said, he kind of had an unfortunate go at NACL and has had a sort of unfortunate go when it comes to teams that he's been on. So when it was kind of discovered that you guys would have to get a new ADC, was Levitate one of those names that you guys really sought after?
I'll be
Okay.
completely honest, and Levitate also knows this because our coach was blunt honest with him. No, he was not.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so we had like a few players that we were deciding upon, and Levitate was not on that list. And we got to a point of the list is like, as long as they just are an ADC player, just a basic ADC player, they can be molded to the team and play with the team to be fine. It's not like it's kind of like there's a big gap between stellar ADCs that are just like above
Mm,
the rest and
yeah.
an ADC player that's a challenger level player, right? Um, was it worth it for us as a team to pay a an amazing, no, not an amazing one, a ADC that might be better than Levitate, that has a better track record than Levitate, like $2,000 more per month, or just take Levitate, which he can prove himself, and he's done so far.
Yeah.
And we chose to opt Levitate. And yeah, and he knows this completely. He knows he wasn't our first choice, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to go into the environment and try to prove his worth. And everyone on the team loves him, and he's definitely a big
No,
part of
he
the
showed
season.
up in the series against AoE. I think like
Yep.
in particular, game number 2 on the Zeri was really fun to watch. And I mean, or no, not the Zeri. Whoops, my bad.
Kai'Sa?
Kaisa was game 3. The Jinx, I believe, was game 2.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
so
put
it's
on
game
a
3
fun
with
game
Kai'Sa.
there. That was a good game from him. So I'm glad you guys took a chance on Levitate. To be completely honest with you, because the times that I have seen him, I know I'm newer to the scene than both of you, but the times I have seen him, I've been really impressed. So I'm happy he's here for sure.
The funny thing with like ADCs, a lot of times they make the dumbest mistakes, and sometimes that lives on in their career, and that kind of puts coaches off. But as long as you can fix those mistakes and work on them, like any ADC can be amazing. They just have the
Yeah,
right click.
for
I'm
sure.
just kidding.
Hey
But
man,
that's
that sentence you said about ADCs being dumb, tell that to my solo queue ADCs. I know what you
sometimes they
mean,
get a little bit
brother.
too hype. Sometimes
Yeah, a
they
little bit.
they
A
go a
little
little bit
bit.
too far up, and they
There
get
were
one shot.
certainly
And
some moments there in the series as well that I saw, and I was like, "Levitate, sir." I believe it was the game 1, the like I believe it was the aggressive flash near the top side of the map on the Varus where he just insta died after that. I was like, "Oh boy."
yeah,
That was a funny moment, but yeah, it certainly was like a good series from him overall, even if there was some like obvious like stuff to work out, I think.
yeah,
And that's
and
what makes your team so exciting in my opinion, is that you guys are new and you have a lot of like room to grow.
I think the game 1 from last week, I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that
Mhm.
because a lot of these players like Sam can levitate, they're going to give first time jitters,
Yeah.
and just the team overall, it's their first game in NACL the split. They're not accustomed. They were playing in OQs. They're practicing one time a week. They're scrimming one time a week in OQs, and now they are going against players that been here for quite a bit, and players that retired and came back like a week later. And yeah, so they definitely had
I
the
wonder who
jitters,
you're
and
talking about there.
I wonder who. And but they definitely put on a good game 1. There were mistakes that happened, but it's definitely winnable at a lot of points of that game. And it looked like after that game, all the jitters were out, and we completely just
Mhm.
slaughtered them in game 2 and 3. And
Yeah.
obviously, I think AOE is going to be the 10th place team at the end of the season.
So
So
did we, largely.
Yeah, I
I,
mean, uh,
but I mean, we're happy about the win, but it's not what like
so you guys are
we're still
basically
hungry.
saying we win, but it is against AoE. So take that as you will, kind of thing.
Shit, if we lost, I would just have to count my teams that we might be able to be as like shit. We're gonna be in relegation soon. No, but yeah, getting them out of the way early on the season before they could fix their issues is big.
Mhm.
It felt like AOE's too all over the place. Sure, like let's say mid Cupic. A lot of people were flaming because we like hard banned Cupic in game 1, but those bans showed later on when Cupic lost their Nivea pick, which is actually a great pick. Like that combo with the Skarner and Nivea was lethal,
Mhm.
and but after that they just got completely exposed in game 2 and 3, and it felt like AoE was playing without a mid laner and jungler because of how much prio Samkin got.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that was a little bit of a. I mean, I think that was a prediction a lot of people made, ourselves included. Right, is kind of Cupix coming into this having not really played at the
Yeah.
NACL level. Curious on your thoughts there, especially as a team that comes in with 2 rookies who had kind of been grinding the NACL circuit before. Is it even excusable to bring in players to and directly to NACL who haven't played at that tier 3 level before, or do you think that's just kind of a misplay?
Uh, I think the problem was like first of all, I feel like their idea of playing competitively might be kind of awkward, where they don't have that competitive sense of how to play as a team. Solo queue is a different beast. I could watch our players solo queue and it looks like an Emerald game in my opinion. Some of the mistakes that people do is completely horseshit. So
Yep.
But like in competitive, one mistake you could lose a tower, 2 towers, a dragon, baron. Like a
The game,
lot of
really.
small mistakes can happen, and you saw that gameplay in Cubic where sometimes they just didn't respect where the enemy champions are.
Mm-hmm. I actually wanted to ask about kind of a Samikin versus, so obviously a Samikin versus a Cubic kind of
Mhm.
thing, because I feel like, you know, Samikin going into the NACL or going into the promotion tournament just in general kind of carved out a name for himself, as obviously he has the Zoe, but very like long range control mage heavy,
Yeah.
right? Things like the Hui, things like the Lux, things like the Zoe are obviously are all picks that he really enjoys playing. I felt like, and I couldn't help but feel like, you know, Cupic, when the announcement was made, I was like, man, Cupic is also known for this style of play, and watching the two kind of go against each other, it just made me it made it very obvious that I feel like that you know, Samikin has the extra little bit of competitive edge, and what that can do when you have these players who are so similar in champion pool, in play style, and just that extra little bump of experience, like what that can do to you as a player to give you an advantage. Because it felt like Samikin always had Cupic's number, at least. It always felt like he was in control of the lane, even when it was tough, like in game one with the Anivia.
So in terms of like laning 1v1, Samkin understood when to get prio. Cubic did not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
that's
Cubic would
very, yeah.
blow random summoners, or not summoners, spells to just clear wave, poke, or whatnot. Samkin understood that he could get prio by, you know, possibly slow pushing the wave to a point where we could set up for a dragon or a neutral objective, or even trying to gain space in the river at certain points where I think Cupic was thinking this is a solo queue game, and that's what it just felt like to me.
Yeah.
I think it will, hopefully for AOE, get better over time. But like you said, without Cupic having kind of like an experience in competitive play, it's gonna get hard. Maybe they decided just to try the play of trying to get some kind of random name to kind of create hype, but they have a long way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I definitely agree with the analysis. I do think he looked maybe a little better than I would have expected. Like, I think we've had mid laners come into the NACL, even who had played in Tier 3, come out of the gate and look worse than Cubic did through 2 series here, right?
Yeah, I mean he's a high elo player, right? He's I don't know, like
Yeah.
1500 or something. I don't know, something. Yeah. Some pretty decently high level challenger player, so
For
he's
sure.
gonna hold his own at points. But
yeah, I agree with that. So I don't know. I'm hoping he continues to develop, but I'm going to be keeping AOE at 10th, and I think that's a good opportunity to kind of peel back a little bit here, because I do want to chat about. So first of all, I suppose at a broader level, I had a top 6 and a bottom 4 coming into this season. I think those were like the clearest divide. Quax, I think you were on top 5 and bottom 5. Correct me
Yeah,
if
I
I'm
was.
wrong. Are you still there? Are you
Yeah.
over in my camp now, or are
I
you still
mean,
on top 5, bottom 5?
I honestly feel like I might have changed a little bit more to your camp, just because you look at some of these games, like obviously the
I don't even
series,
remember
some
who
of
was
them are
your
2-1.
fourth. Who was your fifth one in the lower
I
tier?
believe fourth was TLC,
Okay, you had
and then I
TLC
think
out of top 5. Okay.
I think fifth was Supernova.
Yeah.
And I think I am leaning more into your camp now, because it is very clear that some teams are just better than others. I feel like through the past 2 weeks, like there is a very clear divide, and it's not as like split down the middle as I guess, hope for. Would be the right word, because like we had games ending in like 24 minutes. We had 22-minute games. Like some of these games were so insanely fast, and it kind of goes back to what Blue was saying earlier, where you make one tiny mistake and a team can run away with a tower, 2 towers, a baron, potentially even the game, and that happens sometimes. So I certainly think that there is a divide between like the top 6 and the bottom 4 now. Like after just 2 weeks, I do think that's more of a fair assessment than the 5-on-5 divide.
Yeah. Bully, are you on that same wavelength? Do you see top 6, bottom 4? Do you?
Let me see. So
You
1, 2,
obviously have an
3,
attachment to one of the
4.
teams that we may call bottom 4. It's no
Yeah.
flame there, but
I would probably say top 6, bottom 4.
Mhm.
all right. Well, if we're all on the
Um,
same page there, so out of the bottom
Yeah.
4, let's frame the conversation this way. Out of the bottom 4 teams, who do you think's really impressed you over the course
Blue
of
Otter.
the first 2 weeks? I do think Blue Otter is the easy answer.
Oh, Blue
there.
Otter's not in the
I-
bottom 4.
Oh, you don't have Blue
Well,
Otter in
no-
the bottom 4. Who do you have in the bottom
They're
4?
number 1, baby.
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah, I
figured.
love it. I mean, in fairness to my power rankings, Blue Otter I'm rooting for in spirit, kind of, because I'm a fan of the players, right? Like at the end of the day, I really am a big fan of music and Samakin. I do think though that if we're talking about, Gordo, you and I, like the reason I think Blue Otter are probably the best of the bottom 4 that we had ranked is it's almost like a process of elimination, I feel, because I feel like the other teams in the bottom 4 are Winthrop, AoE, and CCG, right? Those are probably the ones we also had in the bottom 4, and those are also, lower tier teams just off of the last 2 weeks. And I mean, I feel like Winthrop are the team I'm looking at that might have a chance, but I feel like CCG can also be argued as well. I think the reason Blue Otter are probably the team that would escape that in like end rankings is because of music. I feel like music is really I feel like he goes underappreciated in a lot of Blue Otter talks because this is probably one of the most intelligent junglers I've ever seen. I know music is a very loud voice on Blue Otter. He's very smart about the game, and I feel like other key bottom 4 teams lack that very key piece. I mean, and it shows in their gameplay where I feel like it's very difficult for them to pinpoint when to rotate, when to go for objectives. Whereas I feel like Blue Water have an idea, and a lot of it is driven by the dedicated shot callers.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. I was pretty impressed with how Music and Samakin were able to come together and work as a mid jungle duo. I'm happy to see Quacker and Music back together as well. I thought that duo was a really big bright point for that Supernova roster they were on together. And they definitely, I think, are just picking back up where they left off. So they've definitely looked really good. Bully, I'm curious. So Supernovas are the top 6, or sorry, Blue Otters are the top 6. So who's your other team in your bottom 4? If it's Winthrop, AoE, CCG, surely. Who's your 4th?
It's Supernova.
You have Supernova down there.
Yeah,
Okay.
not surprised. Yeah.
So let me give you a rundown of my.
Do Supernova impress you the most out of those 4?
Yeah, they have a win.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be the secret.
There you go.
Okay, so first Winthrop, if they had like their old roster of Winsome, support, mobility, sword, and the rest of the players.
Winthrop. You're talking about Winthrop, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
so
Winthrop.
Denethor, Wokow, sword,
Yeah,
mobility.
that roster is a dead last. AoE would beat them.
Yep.
And so Winsome leaving does wonders for Winthrop's stocks and NACL, but it's unfortunate because that comes at the cost of like half the fucking Winthrop roster not being able to play because of getting the slew players. That is like the biggest problem I have is because if you're kind of trying to enter into this league by buying into it and you're dumping the players that have been repping your name from CLOL and even last year, right?
And you're giving it to basically I feel like you could call Slew like a rival school at this point.
You could call this team Slew at this point. It's 4 out of 5 players.
Yeah, that is kind of disheartening, I feel, if you're like Sword or Wokow or Mobility. Just seeing your name replaced with a player that you have been like rivals with in CLOL for, a decent chunk of time. I never thought of that before, actually.
I understand that they want to do well in the NACL, but it comes at the cost of like your own players that go to your school that are committed to your school, and it doesn't 100% sit right with me. But I guess they're just trying to do their best for the program.
Yeah.
Even though it's not their program anymore.
I feel like Winthrop, when we talk about them, the main concern I had for the original team before they got all the SLU players was the fact that I hate to say this, but like Wokow and Sword just weren't ready. Like they weren't up to par. I feel like you look at other mid jungle duos, even Music Samikin is who are also new to the league, were an amazing mid jungle duo who I think completely blow Sword Wokow out of the water. At least just from like a face value, it really felt like that would have been like the worst mid jungle duo. And you look at what Winthrop have used in the past, and the obvious answer is Denethor, right? Like Denethor has been the carry for a lot of their wins. Occasionally Mobility and Chookies would be able to pull something out in the laning phase, but Denethor was a very like unconventional win con, I feel, where they didn't really play toward his lanes to gank the enemy jungler or go for dives or put pressure on the opposition. More so just make sure that Denethor had his 1v1 island, and he would pick something scaling where they would give him 3 items, and then he would kind of come out like a raid boss. That would never work in NACL. So like I was saying, unless they like changed their style, this team would be dead last. And I think one thing they really fixed with this roster change in particular was the bot lane. Like I think Aaron is a really good player, and I'm happy that he's getting a shot at NACL, even if it's not in the best conditions. And I can totally see that. I mean, they did show some signs of life in the bot lane, despite them losing the series. So I feel like it's another team where they're good. They have a long way to go, but they have the ability to ramp up. Whereas I feel like the original roster, there was no hope for really a ramp up or like room to grow or really any way I felt like the team could improve, because we've seen the ceiling of that squad before in CL multiple times, and it's not good enough to go against the other teams in the NACL.
If we're talking about ceiling of the SLU team,
yeah, I
think
felt like
I mean the ceiling of
way
the SLU team
higher.
included Surdy, so
Yeah,
that's a big problem, right? When Surdy's on a different school or team.
Yeah, for sure. I think Quax is talking about the ceiling of the old Winthrop roster.
Versus this now, which is way higher. Like the old Winthrop roster didn't. I didn't really feel like would have a chance to improve.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree.
Whereas I feel like this one does.
Yeah, that old Winthrop roster would have gone dead last. And I guess we could talk about CCG next.
Yeah. I do want to say about Winthrop, I am like, I mean, they're basically just wild card from last season, but they have a real support main that support. No hate to Doxa, but I think Skytech's probably the better support, and was a big part of them being able to make their run at CLOL this year. And they've got Denethor instead of Quacker, which is kind of a remains to be seen question. He had a rough welcome to the NACL. He was against Surdy, and an angry Surdy who had just lost the first match as well. Yeah. And oh boy, did we see it. I mean, he picked he had an insane Renekton game. He picked the Vayne into him, and it did not look good. It was a rough run for Denethor, but I'm curious to see how he'll be able to do as the season goes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's yap about CCG. What were you thinking, Bully?
I mean, there's one easy way to beat that team.
You
just tilt them.
Oh, tilt. I was gonna say ban Viego.
Yeah, like straight up, if one thing goes wrong and certain player or players get tilted, the game is simple. Like you could see parts of that on their past couple matches on stream, and yes, they're own too, but they do have the potential of having doing pretty decent. I mean, they have some solid players that had pretty solid history in NACL, but the problem I have with that roster is their synergy and how well they're gonna get play together, and if they're gonna start yelling at each other at some point.
It does feel like that's happening a little bit in some of their games. I do agree. I think this would have been my pick of my bottom 4, just because I think it's too easy to pick Blue Otter. Like, you guys won your series, you guys did well. I'm curious to see you guys against teams other than AoE, but
yeah, I do think it's going to be a pretty good match against CCG and Winthrop. So.
I
As long as we win
agree.
them, I'm fine.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, CCG looked pretty decent in their win over Supernova. I think Chad had a really good Viego game there.
Mhm.
He got another Viego game in the next series. It does seem like they are, and I mean, a lot of people are playing carry junglers right now, so I don't want to read too much into it, but it does definitely feel like they're putting a lot of eggs in the Chad basket, at least as they start to figure things out. That's not a huge surprise to me. I am still looking to see the old Cincinnati Fear Shochi kind of come back a little bit. I feel like he's having a bit of a
Yeah.
down year. Still feels like he's having that down year.
Same honestly
Yeah.
goes for Manui. I feel like Shochi and Manui, I felt were kind of two players that I was really looking at. Like I was kind of saying, like if they can return to form, like if they can return to what made them, all the eyes got put on them for, then I feel like this team could very easily get into the top 5. Because I think Crimson is really talented, and I think Chad is really talented. We've seen it multiple times. He has the hat buff. But overall, we haven't seen that yet, right? In both series, we didn't really get to see that. The best we really got to saw from them, again, like you guys said, was the Chad Viego. I felt like that was what was really good and partially what netted them the winner. Actually, not partially, probably what was netted them the win. But I don't want to be a little bit of a doomer here, but I do feel like Game 2, Supernova played really badly, and I felt like CCG almost didn't beat them as much as Supernova beat themselves. Like there were multiple instances where I felt like Supernova dropped the ball and CCG just picked it up. So I don't know. I don't want to say they shouldn't have won that game, but Supernova in that game number 2 against CCG really did not go. It did not go well, like whatsoever for them. Like everything did not go their way. They were down 2 kills instantly. The Maokai was perma behind and perma locked out of the game, which gave Chad room to go in. So I think there's a lot of growing room for this team, but like from what I've seen, I'm not super high on them being able to break out of the place that I put them in, at least.
I think that's fair. Let's get into, I guess, the team of the hour, which has got to be Dragonsteel, right? Through 2
Yes,
weeks,
yes.
2-0, 4-0, having made that. And I guess this is going to be a Dragonsteel staple from now on, changing rosters the day before the season starts.
It's
As
wild, man.
they announced Niles is he retired? I guess he's retired.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's transitioned to coach. He's
Yeah.
supposed to actually become the coach last split.
Yes.
So,
But yeah, I heard about that too.
So it was finally his time. So yeah, this is
This team
it
is
for Niles.
really good.
Yeah, I
This
agree.
team, yeah.
Go ahead,
This
Quax. You
this
can
team
start
is
us off.
super solid. I mean, I feel like the big worry for everyone was Zamuda, right? Everyone was concerned about Niles not being on that team. And when we did our power rankings, Bully, I talked about how like Niles, while he's not the most mechanical beast on the team, he is the shot caller of the team, right? He very much serves as now he's the coach, so obviously he's got some good judgment. And I was really worried that they wouldn't have a person like Niles to be able to kind of make that judgment, have the sort of be the leader of the team. I feel like the person that's really stepped up at being that leader in particular has been Yuji. I feel like the top side of Dragonsteel looks the best in the league, and it's not even close. I think Zamudo had a really good first game, particularly. I mean against Surdy of all people, right? I feel like when you have a good game against Surdy, that's a good sign of things to come, and it was a good sign of things to come because they won their next series. I think their top side is probably what makes this team so insanely good.
Yeah, Spyrox and Yuji are both really good, and obviously without Niles being like the voice of the team, it had to go to somebody else. And
Mm-hmm.
I assume it's actually both Spyrox and Yuji taking on that role. I don't think it's just Yuji.
Yeah.
So, and as a team, obviously they're really good. They didn't have Scary Jerry against Fly
They
Quest,
didn't. They had Rock Boom.
and
yeah.
Rock Boom played like he was just straight smurfing.
Played very well.
Yeah. really good game from Rock Boom, especially because he was a sub.
The Lucian
Right.
one in game 2 was particularly
Yes.
very,
That
very
was
good.
really
I
good.
do think I wonder like I kind of like I want to give like Zyko big like Nami credit too. Like I feel like it's not like
Yeah.
he's landing like the sick bubbles or anything. Usually, he has for sure, but it's like he and Scary Jerry were so dominant on that duo last split, and then he just rolls up and plays it with Rock Boom, and they're also very dominant there. Um, I've been very high on Zyko all year, but I think
Yeah.
he's kind of really picking
Uh-huh.
up where he left off.
And I think his strengths are actually kind of enhanced for having a player like Zamudo on his team, right? One thing that I noticed against their series, particularly against FlyQuest, was there seems to be a very clear divide of playstyle between the supports, where you're either a roamer or you love staying in your lane, right? And I think one of the best players that's good at roaming is Shine, right? I mean, oh yeah, obviously the guy who probably played Bard or is named after a part of Bard is good at roaming. Zyko was matching him every single time. In fact, Zyko was out roaming Chime, which was probably Chime's biggest strength. And so Zyko being able to do that constantly was what I think netted them the win. Him being topside, him being mid lane, him being basically everywhere really made it, I feel, easier for the solo lanes and was why they were so dominant. I feel like Zyko was almost the man behind the curtain for the showmakers of Dragonsteel, especially in those that first game.
Yeah. I mean, to loop back here on Zamudo, like I feel like the big question now for this split that I'm going to be keeping an eye on is like, is this like the corner turn for Zamudo? Because I feel like we have, since he's come into the league, since he came in on wildcard in summer last year, he has had individually very impressive games and very impressive performances where he has like, been able to beat anybody. But he has also uh, gotten caught out a lot in side lanes and had a
Yes.
lot of cases where he's just pushed up way too far, given up his life for free when his team doesn't have any cross maps available. And we saw a tiny bit of that on the Udyr game that was otherwise very, very clean into CCG. There was like one play I think where he's like up at inner turret and his team is like nowhere and there's no objectives up and there's nothing to do. Other than that, though, he was very. I think his Udyr game against CCG was very, very good. I think his Twisted Fate game in game number 1 up against Fly Challengers was also quite dominant. He was able to
Yeah.
outplay some 1 versus 2s and stuff in that.
The
And
the Destiny where he went into the
yes,
bush and then he got out of there. That was so I like hit my desk like that. I was like, oh my god, he got out.
yeah,
That was awesome.
yeah. So I mean, like the question is right is like, and you could very easily like talk yourself into it, right? With Niles as coach, as well
Mhm.
as like a having a former top laner. I'm having a top laner period as your coach. I'm sure he still plays top lane if he still plays the game. Uh, yeah, I really hope that this is kind of like a big page turn for Zamudo, and he may just be one of the top laners in the league now. We'll have to see, as their pool of games has been small, but their pool of games has been small because they keep 2-0ing their opponents. So
Yep.
we'll see how that continues to play out. But I mean, this could be the best team in the NACL. I mean, they managed to beat. They played close games against FlyQuest, but they won them
Yes.
both. You can't
Very.
really take that away from them. Um,
The, their mid game definitely needed some work. Like
sure.
in game and especially in game 2, Fly should have won after Shaden made the miracle Elder Steal, but they
Yes.
didn't because Spirax just lives everything. Um like that should have that game in my opinion should have belonged to Fly C. So there very much are some like growing areas, and I think the mid game is definitely number one with how much some of them got caught out. Specifically, like you said, Zamudo getting caught out a few times.
I feel like Fly C, um, they got kind of shafted in terms of not having Surdy the entire time of like up until because of Seal, right? So
Mm-hmm.
uh, if this matchup happened again in the middle of the season, I feel like FlyQuest would win.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think it's definitely a lot closer than people think, especially because FlyQuest doesn't have Quad anymore. They have Bradley, and Bradley looked kind of shaky in my opinion. Um, in their very first match, even the second. So I want to see what kind of happens there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. They look better coming in to their second set of matches. Of course, those were against Winthrop, but definitely looked like they had like a much more solid, just dominate topside game plan, and they did very, very well with that. I mean, the Surdy, Renekton, Shade, and Brand composition in game one just felt unfair. Like Denethor could not play the game. I think Surdy like had some very flashy like play around the bush and flash out, dash back in, get as much damage as you can without dying stuff to get started rolling in that game. And then after that, it was just like a stat check, and the game was kind of already over. But very, very good stuff out of them in that game. Felt like a little bit of a return to form, but I agree. You kind of have to have that asterisk of, well, we don't think Winthrop's going to be that good, and that's the only series we've gotten to see from them so far.
Yeah. So,
go ahead, Billy.
It's like obviously that's a stupid hard first match to have when you're in ACL.
Yeah.
One, they have that out of their way, but fortunately, it's not like they could prove a lot, because let's say they play it again in midseason is where you just kind of see how good team's going to be. Winthrop, they didn't have their roster confirmed like 5 days until.
Yeah,
it was like they had a lot of practice.
We were literally getting ready to like make power rankings, and then a few days or maybe like a day before we were ready to record on the Salt Mine, they changed the roster. So I had to like change it around and be like, okay, I initially actually put this team dead last. Like I was saying, okay, AoE, maybe you're not that bad. Maybe you can do this. And then I saw Winthrop's changes, and I went to my notes as soon as that happened, and I switched them around. So yeah, it was man, they got to get the teams to lock those in faster, because man, that was really annoying the whole off season. Like the week leading up to off season was like it's so annoying to like keep track of like who was going where.
I mean, they screwed themselves over with their own contract, so
yeah,
that's what happens.
So I actually wanted to talk about a team that I was pretty surprised about. And that was DSG. DSG, kind of a surprise team that I feel like a lot of people had like kind of flip-flopping around. 1-1 right now. One thing I really like though is how we're seeing Ivern. I love that Ivern was played in one of those games that they played, because we're talking about all these crazy AP junglers, the Karthuses, the Brands, the occasional Lilias, XU, going on that Lilia. We'll talk about that later. Where's the Ivern, especially with all of the AD solo laners being good right now, the Tristana, the Corki? I have no idea why this isn't a more popular pick, and I was really happy to see it in their series against TLC.
Wasn't it TL who played the Ivern?
Oh, it was TLC that played the Ivern. I just looked it up.
Yeah,
I'm just happy to see that champ in general. I'm so surprised that more teams aren't going for this. I think we saw it twice. We've seen it twice so far in the NACL. It needs to be picked more. I think the champ is still super duper broken, especially in a meta that has so many ADCs and marksmen around the map.
I don't want to get too into NACL queues right now, but did you see that Ducky Getters played an Ivern mid Rengar jungle game
How'd it go?
to win their game 3? They won. They won game 3 against Castleberry.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, that's a VOD worth watching if you're looking at NACL.
I will. Games. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Ivern mid, LS Colin from the grave of NA, man. I love seeing that.
I'm a Rough Beans truther, man. That guy's gonna. If that guy wants to be in NACL, I think he can make it. But anyway, I on your Disguised point, I did want to say so Disguised were the victims of a robbery and then perpetrated a robbery. Between weeks 1 and week 2. So the weird thing about DSTL for me, not DSTL, DSG, sorry. The weird thing about DSG for me is within their 1-1 record, there are 2 games that should not have, and they just have the wrong result, right? Because in week 1, they have that game, game 2 against Fierce Starforge, where they're like mega ahead and they're 100% supposed to win, and XU Kindred just like flashes in and steals the Elder, despite the fact that
Yeah.
the Fear are losing the fight against, like, everybody's low on HP and DSG have Ocean Soul. So like Fear's in like a 100% losing that fight scenario. They get a miracle steal, and they win it off of XU's steal on the Elder. And then in week 2, DSG come up with their win in game 3 up against Team Liquid in a scenario where like Team Liquid got Soul and they got Baron, and they should have just won that game 9 times out of 10. But it's Tomo Zeri who steals the Elder in that one.
Yup, that was crazy.
And then turns it around and ends the game. So there's two of the DSG should have lost the series to TL, which would have made them 0-2. But they also should have gotten a game 3 against Fear Starforge.
Yes.
I don't know where that puts them in my rankings. It's crazy to me that half their games have been decided by Elder steals.
I love this squad for the simple fact that they are, and I said this during my power rankings, Yukino fits into this squad like a missing puzzle piece, because I look at this roster and I think of, some crazy mechanics. You've got Tenacity, you've got Young, you've got Tomo. These are mechanical beasts, and I think that Yukino had some really good mechanics. Part of the reason why I think that Perry wasn't a great fit for the team, here's my weekly Perry mention, was because Perry very much was like a plan out kind of person. I feel like he didn't have that sort of clutch factor, that sort of ability to throw it into the wind, throw caution into the wind and just go for it. I think that Yukino does, and I think this team does, and that's why we've been seeing so many 50-50 flips. They may not always be the best, but they are goddamn entertaining as hell. And when this team is at their worst, this team is at their worst when they don't get those mechanical champions. Like their second game against Team Liquid, they had a comp of Skarner, Zyra, Azir, Senna, Ornn. And this team looked like they didn't want to play League of Legends because they weren't playing the champions that were like them, right? It wasn't their identity. And then you put them on the Camille, you put them on the Sentry, you put them on the Zeri, and look at that. They just immediately win the game. So I think this team has a very defined style of play that's really fun to watch. But when they're off of it, or when they're, weakened early on in the game, they don't really seem to have the ability to come back from it, bar a miracle like what Tomo can do.
Bully, where are you at on this DSG team through 2 weeks?
I think they're pretty much solidified in the middle pack for me. TLC, I'm thinking that I feel like they're fine. They're going to be fine. They have the same roster from last split as well, and they made a run in playoffs.
Yeah.
So they're not a team to like just shrug off. So this win against TLC was pretty solid, and almost taking Fear to game 3, which they should have, was pretty solid as well. So looks like DSG is starting off on a decent foot. If I had seen, if I had to guess where they'd start off after the first 2 weeks, it would have been a 1-1, and probably this kind of results as well. So they're kind of like, in my opinion, going to separate who's going to be like top 5 or bottom 5, in my opinion.
You also, before we get off DSG, I do also add Tomo's insane. Tomo might be.
Yeah, Tomo was my pick for week 2's like MVP, by the way. Like,
Tomo might. I mean, I think XU put on a clinic as well. Tomo, and I guess it's not a big surprise for it to be either
XU
of them.
is my pick for week 1. I think Tomo is my pick for week 2.
I think the two of those guys, and I mean, through 2 weeks, super early to call, but like those two guys and or outside of the Fly Challengers guys who, like, I mean, I think most people have Surdy as like the best player in NACL. Discounting Fly Challengers, I think both XU and Tomo make it a strong case for being the best players in the NACL as well. Through the limited exposure we've gotten from them, especially Tomo, dude. Tomo's just like 1v9 every game. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I like to see that they put a lot of faith in him, right? Like they've given him some really interesting picks. Like they've given him like a wide range, right? Like you've got some mechanical champions like the Kai'Sa Evolution, but then you've got like your Senna and your Ziggs, and I feel like that puts him as a more complete player. which I really like to see. I feel like that's what can make a player go to that next level, is when you've shown that you can play all facets of champions in your role, all styles of your role, and make it work. While I don't think he's made it work equally, I still think he's better on things like the Lucian, things like the Kai'Sa than say the Ziggs and the Senna.
Yeah.
It is nice to see that they're flexing him around, and I think as this team goes week by week and sort of works on their macro a little bit, specifically those early games, I think they will be they have the potential, in my opinion, to maybe just straight up be like a top 4, maybe even a top 3 team if maybe Fear fall off a cliff or Fly fall off a cliff. But I feel like getting to that top 3, that there is a very fine line between top 3 and the rest, in my opinion. And I think DSG had the ability to skirt that, but it's going to take some effort.
Yeah, I don't know. His Zeri games, his Kai'Sa game was crazy. Just
Yeah, it was wild.
he's just so willing to be melee range and play to the limit to pull off the plays the team needs. And I don't think DSG are winning some of those games if he doesn't do that, because it can be tough to get really strong engages and stuff off, especially with like how the pool that Tenacity's operating on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's really willing to take things into his own hands, and he has done a fantastic job of that through the first couple of weeks. Well then,
Yeah, absolutely.
we've talked about a lot of teams so far. I'm curious. So we got a strong like middle of the pack here, right? We've got everybody from Blue Otter down to Team Liquid Challengers kind of sitting at 1 win. We talked about the lower pool of teams. We've talked about Dragon Steel coming on up. Of I guess what we would call the top 6, right? The teams that we feel like are going to be contending in the playoffs. Who do we think is like especially stood out? Because it feels like we have like a strong. The fact that we are so high on so many teams means that we basically just have a big mid tier that we're very high on. Anybody that you're really zipping up there? DSG, Supernova, Fear, Starforge, Team Liquid Challengers out of that pool. Let's start with Bully.
Oh yeah.
You talk about like who's gonna make the best run?
Yeah,
in
like
my opinion,
who are you feeling? Who are you feeling you've risen up in your ranks through 2 weeks from like this big middle pack?
In terms of like actual like gameplay and ability to play the game, it's going to be Fear Starforge. Not because of anything they've done in the first 2 weeks, it's just because of the players that they have. Obviously, I wonder if that player list is going to change soon, but it's gonna just what they have in general. They're trying to prove that they don't belong in NACL, and there's a lot of players here that try to prove they belong in this league, while some of them on Fear is trying to say they belong in the LCS. So they're gonna try to push for a win in the playoffs.
I had the same answer. I'm really hot on this Spheric Starforge team. I mean, not only do I think this team is going to do really well, I'm rooting for this team at my core, because I agree with you, Bully. I think these guys are all basically trying to prove that they are either a top player in the NACL or that they're LCS ready, right? Or they're just trying to return there. So I think that the hunger these players possess is really great. And I think that's going to lead them to improving week after week. Particularly, man, I was so happy to see XU against, I believe it was CCG, pulled out the Kindred, pulled out the Lilia, went absolutely crazy in that series, and that was
DSG.
so cool. Oh, it was against DSG.
But I think that means more. I think that's better.
Oh yeah, that's better. That's absolutely lovely to see, because I feel like we see the brands, we see the Karthuses. Kindred is I talked to Cubby about this actually when we were casting OQs together. I think he said Kindred had like a 70-some% win rate in NACL. Like, this is the champion that just like straight up terrorizes the Rift. And I think XU being put on carries, giving him the ability to shine after he was kind of trampled on is really cool. So I'm rooting for this team in spirit. I think they can actually do it. If there's a team that can make a deep run and maybe upset Dragon Steel or maybe upset FlyQuest Challengers, I think it's the squad 100%. Because
they play
think they can
AoE
really
next,
make it
so
better.
that should be a win.
Oh yeah, most likely. Let's not jinx them. That would be I would look like a real idiot if AoE somehow pulled out a win.
Well, the transitive property, right, is if the AoE beats Fear Starforge, that means we are better than Steel Starforge.
That's true.
That is true. That is true.
And for like a couple days because we played them like a week after.
Mhm.
You
And
can
then we
get
have to prove that
you
we're
can
better.
get 80% of a win over Dragonsteel if you beat Winthrop.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's gonna be interesting. Okay, so 2 weeks from now is gonna be like the Super Week, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when.
The first
So
of
Blue
2
Otter
super
actually
weeks,
plays
really,
twice.
but yes.
Yeah, and I think there's a money match here as well.
I think those are the money match
Like,
weeks as well, yes.
yeah. So that's gonna be somewhat fun.
I'm really interested in
Have they
those
told
money
you which one
matches.
is your money match yet?
Yeah.
Is it your Fear match or your CCG match or both?
The CCG match is one of ours, and I believe the Winthrop. No, sorry. CCG match is ours, and then the Supernova one is ours as well.
Okay, so you have the one on week 4, one on week 5. That makes sense.
Yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So. Yeah.
I do want to highlight, while we're talking about teams that are on the rise, I want to highlight Supernova, man. I'm like, I know I said last week or 2 weeks ago, I'm high on this team. I really want to see them do well. Yes, it was against CCG, and yes, they dropped a game, so maybe it's not the most promising start. But I'm pretty happy with what I got to see out of them, though. I think Kenvi and especially Toasty looked very, very good.
Yeah.
I also like. I mean, Diamond had a massive rel game in game number 1. Really good job to find some of those flank angles and get some really good fights started, and to be able to peel for Lens in some angles where he might have been over aggressing a little bit. I think Toasty was really put ahead by him as well, but had a really, really solid performance on the Corki, capitalized on those rel engages really, really well. Yeah, Chad Viego kind of pops off in game number 2 and just carries the whole game as Supernova kind of over aggress again a little bit. Like Ken V Maokai especially is just walking around like he's invincible. He's just like he like first items Leandries, I think, and is just walking into 4 people like he can't be killed. But he pulls it back in game number 3 off a crazy Kha'Zix carry performance as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'd
And
love to see it as a Kha'Zix fan.
you do love to see the Ken V Kha'Zix come on out in game 3 fearless. So I am very happy with what I got to see, particularly because I think Toasty looked really, really good up against Shochi. I was very happy with the Toasty performances, and I think that was kind of one of the question marks. I think we've seen Lens in enough different scenarios that like I'm confident saying he's a rising star. I think he'll be very, very good. We know Kenvy's great. We know Faisal's great. We know Diamond's
I think
great
they
at
all
this
suck.
level. But I wanted to see more out of Toasty, and I'm very pleased with what I saw in week number 1. I think he looks like he's on track from where he was at on Cincy Fear.
I'll plead ignorance a little bit to the Supernova squad. I feel like Kenvi really is the diamond of this. Or not, well, okay, they literally have a player named Diamond. I feel like he
You
really
don't think
is
Diamond
the
is the
center,
Diamond?
the
No,
centerpiece of this
Diamond's
team.
too good for Diamond, but not good enough for Challenger.
Your words, not mine. I think Kenvi is a really good
Challenger's the league,
centerpiece.
and this is a North American Challengers League. I think he's plenty good for Challengers League. Maybe has had some difficulties transitioning to LCS though.
I think
Yeah.
Diamond is definitely the gatekeeper in terms of support. Because I feel like he smurfs in NACL, but then you put him in LCS, and it's kind of just eh. I feel like Kenvi. I feel like Kenvi is kind of the same way. Obviously, Kenvi has also had LCS experience. You give Kenvi a good mid laner, though, and we've seen him pop off, right? Like on UST with Robbie Bob, he pops off every game. And I think Toasty stepping up has unlocked Kenvi in a new level. Now, I will say, I was not super big on Shochi. I'm still not super big on Shochi, so I really want to see what happens when Toasty goes against more defined and complete mid laners. Because I do think how Toasty plays will limit how good Kenvi is able to play. Because Kenvi likes to look for those aggressive invades. He likes to make sure that he is constantly watched like a hawk by his solo laners and support. If they're not able to give him those resources, or if they're locked out, or if they're against a team that simply won't let Toasty roam or will dominate him in the laning phase, I feel like this team doesn't have a ton of other cards up their sleeve, and that's my big concern for them. I think they can make a deep run, but I think it really hinders on a lot of the supporting pieces instead of that big crown jewel in the jungle.
I mean, my problem with like the definition of making a deep run is the value you get from these players, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how much are you playing these players? Supernova's paying them a fuck ton. I'd imagine they're paying about 12 to 14,000 for this roster a month.
It's a
A
lot.
deep run
Yeah.
doesn't mean shit. Like you want them to be top 3, top 2, if you're paying a team that much money.
Mm-hmm.
Agree. I think they're
Yeah.
they're
for
spending a lot. I know Supernova ownership is very willing to spend a lot. I mean I do think the goal for them is they want to be playing in LA at the end of the split, right?
Nah, they
And
want to go to Sao Paulo.
they want to go to Sao Paulo. I guess that's the thing, right? Yeah, now it's not even. I got to reframe everything, right? Because it's not even about going to LA anymore. Now it's about going to Sao Paulo. And those are one and the same.
Mhm.
But I called this before, right? I do think like if Supernova is on stage in LA and Sao Paulo at the end of this split, it is probably because, like you said, Quax, that Toasty has continued his progression and is enabling Kenvi to be the kind of player they want him to be, and Faisal and Lens and Diamond are all still the rock solid pieces we know they are. And if that's all the case, I think Toasty especially is like somebody people are looking at for LCS next year. He's
For
got the
sure.
right profile, right? He's the right age.
There's
He's the
so
right
many
experience
players.
level.
I think he still needs
I think he needs a
more
little bit more time
academy.
in the oven.
I think he needs like
right
actual,
now, he definitely needs more time. But like he's
Yeah.
full. If Supernova's in the finals, he's fully baked. You know,
I
don't know, that's my
guess.
guess. That's my estimate.
Yeah,
I
that
don't.
makes sense.
Obviously, it'll depend on context, right?
But like,
Once we're there,
let's
we'll know
say
what we've seen.
let's say if Blue Otter makes finals, do you think Zamkin's ready for the LCS? I'll straight up say hell no. He's gonna have time
I
to
mean, if
develop.
Blue Otter makes finals, somebody's playing way differently than I currently think of them in my mind. So,
Yes.
like somebody,
Yeah,
if Blue Otter's in finals, somebody's popping the fuck off. Like somebody's, really,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
or the team just does well together. You never
or
know.
that too. Yeah, but
We
like,
just expose these other teams. I mean,
True.
every team is beatable. I don't think any team is like the FlyQuest of last split.
No, I don't think so either. I mean,
yeah,
that
FlyQuest isn't the
FlyQuest
FlyQuest of last split for sure.
No, I mean Quad was just on a whole other level compared. I feel like not even just mid laners, but just like players in general, right? Like Quad was just too good. We don't have a Quad this split. I mean, the closest thing we have is Surdy, and while I think everyone would probably agree Surdy deserves to move on up, it's not like so big that it's like just everyone screams it like gospel. Whereas I felt like Quad, everyone was saying, okay, this guy is insane. Put him in.
Until somebody
and
imports
Elson's
Fusion, that's when shit will get real.
Oh man,
Dude.
I hope he comes back. I loved that Morningstar. I'm. You should talk to Shibby about that squad. He was way bigger on it than I was. That was my
he's
first.
a 1v5 player. Like
He
he
is
can carry any roster.
He's a
that
1v5
that
player.
Morningstar White Squad was super fun to watch. I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Yushin, but I also really enjoyed Soul. Like I felt like that squad was really cool in a fearless setting because they were basically what I praised DSG for being. You know, a team that throws caution into the wind, but times like 50 and with, in my opinion, way better mechanics. Like at least from what I saw. So.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You should bring back Yushin.
Soul was looking for a team. We might see Soul in OQ too.
I hope so. I hope so. I like him.
He played with Mirage for like at the end promotion, didn't he?
They didn't run him. They were running Dardoch.
No.
Wait, what team did he play on?
So.
He played on something that we played against him.
He played on Morningstar White. The only other thing I've seen him on
Not like he wasn't listed on the roster.
RTR
Maybe he
combine.
subbed in for somebody though.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I know he was like LFT. He had like an LFT post. I think he was just
Oh. It was against Gentle Hearts. He joined for OQ2 for Gentle Hearts. That's what it was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then we played against him.
Did he play?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall him playing.
For OQ2? Yeah, he definitely played.
Oh, I thought wasn't the jungler of OQ2 for GHG like Crackodon?
I thought it was
Crackodon.
Crackodon.
Like
yeah.
Yeah. We're getting off topic a little bit
We
here.
really
this
are.
Is open
Yeah, but
floor.
it's the end of the episode. It's time to start rambling for sure. The wiki lists Krakadon. Maybe he was playing in some scrims. I don't know.
Maybe.
Are we talking about the same soul?
SOL.
Oh, no. He's talking about Soul Never Die.
He's
SOL.
talking about Anime Girl.
I'm
Yeah,
talking about Anime Girl.
You're talking about Anime Girl. He's talking
Yeah,
about Soul
okay, the
Never Die,
Morningstar Soul.
the Morningstar White Jungler.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Oh,
That
perfect.
makes a lot more sense. Yeah. Yeah, no, Soul Never Die, SOL Soul was
yeah.
LFT.
Yeah, I saw he was looking for a team actually.
Yeah, that guy's cracked. He did not get one for. I assume he got offers, but not from teams that he thinks he'll make it with. Yeah, I don't know. Jungle's really stacked right now.
Jungle's our best role.
Kryra is a sub on Fear, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like there's a lot of junglers that need shots and are trying to kind of force their way in. Kisno, it's kind of a shame that he's not developing here anymore. I think he's quite good. So we'll see.
Yeah, there are a lot of junglers. I mean, I've gone on record saying it's by far our best role, right? Like I think you look at the best players in NA, and it's junglers, right? Even in LCS, we have like a bunch of really good ones. So I feel like that makes it really hard for you to move up if you were a jungler. So that's how I know I'll never make it.
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah, because I could be good, but I'm not Yuji. I'm not Inspired. I'm not River. I can't compete, man. Even if I could hit Challenger, which I probably can't.
Well, that's how it is. Very interested to see how these guys are going to continue to develop over the course of the year, though. And looking ahead to next week, I think it's definitely going to be an interesting test to see Supernova versus Team Liquid Challengers. That'll be a big kind of benchmark match, I think, for both teams for me. That will probably pretty strongly affect my power rankings going forward. Bully, we got Blue Otter versus Dragonsteel next week. Any thoughts going in before we close out the show?
I mean, I think we do. A lot of people will count us out, but I think we're going to give people a run for their money. Even if it's a 2-0 from Dragonsteel's side, they're going to be close games. We're not going to give up without a big fight. If we win, I'm not surprised.
If you win, you're not surprised.
I love it.
All right. I love to hear that, man. Thanks so much for hopping on. Last word absolutely goes to you. Anybody you want to shout out? Anything you want to say to those who are tuned in?
Yeah. So at the end of last week, right, when we won, I never expected this, but some players on our team, it was at like 3 a.m., wrote like a fucking essay. It was like 600 words on Discord about how much he loves this team, how this is like the best team environment he's ever been on, blah, blah, blah. And I think it goes to shows like it doesn't matter how much you just straight up give money for players. We want this to be like a good experience for anyone involved. Yes, we're not the richest. We can't just like throw money at players, but we want to make sure the players enjoy their time with Blue Otter, and we're going to try to prop them up to get even better offers in the future. And hopefully at the end, they will just do as best they can. And if we don't do well in playoffs, then that's totally fine.
I love it.
Yeah, love to hear it, man. Well, thanks so much for joining us, especially on short notice. Yeah, I was casting this episode pretty short notice, and appreciate you hopping on tonight, and appreciate everybody at home for tuning on in. We're gonna try to get back to weekly. I know everybody's on busy schedules right now, but Quax and I are moved in. Slayer's hopefully figuring out his work schedule, so hopefully we'll be able to get some more episodes coming your way week by week as the season goes on. You can catch almost all of us somewhere on NACL Qs over the weekend. I will be on the Aegis stream. Slayer, I believe, will be kicking off the Salt Mine stream for the first time this split. So there will be some games over on the Salt Mine channel. TBD on who the other caster will be there. Quax, are you on OQs this weekend? I know you turned down Aegis.
Yeah, I wasn't able to do Asia's because I will be on running the Rift. I
There you
believe
go.
I will be co-streaming, or I will be co-casting, not co-streaming, co-casting with Yanni. So I'm excited for that. It's going to be a banger weekend. I hope everyone can tune into those because those are the future players of North America. Those are the people that you might very well be seeing in the NACL soon. So exciting stuff. Hope to catch everyone who's watching this, catch them there. And yeah, just enjoying the development system as it goes.
Sounds good. Oh, I will also be on the Titan Esports preview show.
Nice.
That'll be. This is coming out on Friday, so it'll be tonight at the time this episode comes out. So tune into that. I'll be yapping with Crims about the NACL qualifiers. So there'll be more content there. Bully, everybody can catch you on. Well, they can catch your team on NACL. Anywhere else they can catch you that you'd want to shout out?
No, they can't.
All right,
On
they can
Blue
register for
Otter
your leagues.
Don't catch
particularly
me
because
anywhere,
you're always
please.
subbing in.
All right.
Always
Well, thanks
subbing
very
in.
much, man. And thank you guys all once again. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.